Hey guys and girls, it's FoxGreen back here again today with another review video, and today we're going to be looking at HITCAM. I know what you're saying, HITCAM? I've never heard of them before. But actually HITCAM is RunCam's new company which is dedicated to scope cameras for Airsoft. So yeah, this is essentially RunCam, and this one is actually a scope and a camera built into one with also night vision capability for quite a low price. But the real question, is it any good? Would I use it and would I recommend it? You might be actually very surprised about what I say on this review video, so stay tuned right to the end. First we're going to look at what's in the box. Let's get into it. Today we're looking at something a little bit different, and it's this HITCAM Scopecam. Now this is unique in that this is the first ever scope and scope camera all in one package that RunCam/HITCAM have ever done. So this is different. The idea here is that you won't have a camera mounted to your airsoft gun and a scope camera, that it's all in one package. You look through it, you aim through it, and you record through it. Now there are other products out there in the market, but they're all for the real steel world. ATN is one of those, and they retail at quite expensive prices. Now with that bear in mind, they are made for real steel shooting. I have a few friends that have those and they use them on their airsoft guns for nighttime and daytime shooting. Now this isn't just a daytime running camera. This, if you buy the extended package, which I have here, you know I have two things here. This will also do night vision capabilities up to 4K 30 frames per second, which is really good, because those more premium cameras I mentioned often only do 1080 30 FPS. So this is allowing you to record up to 4K at nighttime, which is going to be very interesting. And we will be doing tests with this shooting later, so I can show you exactly how it performs. So we'll start with the camera itself first. So what's important to note here is there's actually 4 different options when you're buying this online. You can buy the camera plus the scope plus the IR torch. Obviously that's going to be the most expensive one. You can buy the camera slash scope itself on its own, but you can also buy it stripped back without the lens, which is kind of like the same like the original scope camera option. So there's a few different options there basically. Now, so let's have a look at the HITCAM scope camera here. So this is the, as they call it, the Airsoft version. So getting into, now I have already opened this before, right? There is a plastic bag here. It's empty because that did contain, as I'll get this out, that did contain this rail, which I've now since mounted to it. So as you can see here, this is your scope, and it's actually also basically a camera all in one. Now, if I put my hand over this section, that essentially there is your scope camera. This is an eyepiece which magnifies the screen and makes it look like you're looking through a scope. So that's that. There is a flashback cable here, which I never use. They're in a few of the Run cameras now, which basically means you can connect it into the side here, and only when you want to record, you click it and it starts recording, and you stop it by clicking it. The beauty about the flashback camera is when you've enabled it in the app and you plug this in, it's kind of always constantly recording in the background. So if you get into engagement and hit click, it'll actually rewind the clock. It'll actually capture the footage 30 seconds before you clicked it. It seems like a bit of magic, but it does do that. And then when you end it, it just ends the footage. So it means that you can actually just click and stop, but you're not going to miss footage up to 30 seconds before your click. Pretty interesting. I never use it. Might be useful for people on middle sims if they want to conserve their battery. Also it comes here with a little Allen key, which can also be used for the camera. So let's put that to one side. So it comes with quite detailed instruction manuals. I really like the instruction manual. It's very detailed. It's in English and Chinese, and it goes through everything you need to know. So if I just open it up here on the English version, it goes through everything from operating instructions, resolution settings, zeroing the reticle, because obviously you can zero the reticle to where your BBs are going, the flashback cable, image settings, scenario mode, loads of different modes. So it's pretty cool. It's very good actually instruction manual, so top marks for that. Okay, let's get into the IR torch, because as you know, this camera is able to shoot in night vision mode. Now, I have tested it, which I'll be showing you later, and it's only really any good in night vision with the IR torch. So you need the IR torch to have it any good. So you can see in here what you're getting is you're getting this lovely IR torch. Now, obviously, so I have it with the button pressure pad, so I can turn it on and off. But the way this essentially works, it also comes with this mount, which means you can mount it directly onto your scope like so. So it's a self-contained unit sitting on top of your airsoft gun. Now, you can also mount this further down on your rail with this Picatinny mount if you wish. It also comes with Allen keys and a standard button push one if that's what you want also. So I obviously naturally much prefer the pressure pad, much better. So let's talk about a little bit on the price of this. So as you can see here, right, price-wise, right, if you're getting the scope camera, as you see here, with this IR torch, we're looking at 327 euro. So that's about 349 US dollars. Now, if I was just to get the camera without that, it's 280 euros or 299 US dollars, okay? Now the IR torch, obviously you can buy it that way if you wish. If you want to add on the IR torch after the fact, it's 46 euro or $49 basically, okay? Now, as I said, there's actually another option which is cheaper again, which is actually all this bit removed. So it just looks like the camera. And let me just show you real quick, right, why that is an option. So I can actually screw off this eyepiece, okay? Better still, I can actually take off these screws if I want. But I can just demonstrate much quicker here. If I screw off this eyepiece really quickly. So there's essentially a lens in here which magnifies the screen to make it look like you're looking through a scope. But you can see there, if I just power this on really fast, that that's your, essentially, literally your screen. So I can actually, and it's actually, if I just open up the lens cover there, you can see it's looking through it, and you can see that there's actually a little crosshair there. Now, this is magnified, so when it's on this, it's like looking through a scope, essentially. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but I'll just screw this back on for you. I can actually take off these 4 screws, and essentially that third option for buying is just the camera like this. So, obviously what you're seeing here is the full package, everything included. So, if I just put this back on real quick. And yeah, you can kind of see in there it's magnified, yeah. Very good. Now, I suppose weight-wise, right? So this camera is 332 grams, right? So almost half a kilo, and the torch is 184 grams. Now, the beauty is, as I said earlier, that this package is kind of self-contained. So in theory, it is your night vision, your scope, and your scope camera all in one. So if I was to go the old-fashioned way where I had my normal optic on its own and the camera, that's actually a heavier option. So weight-wise, it's not bad considering that it does everything in one. Okay, so now let's get on to the features of this camera, right? But a little bit about the specs and what to expect with it, okay? So first thing to note is, right, it's a 4K camera, and it'll do 4K 30 FPS. Now you can do 2.7K 60 FPS also if you wish, which is nice. Also, it's equipped for fast charging, and it's also IP64, which means it's one of the highest ratings for water and dust ingress. Now, I find that interesting because it has this rubber flap here, and I think that SD card slot looks a bit vulnerable. I wouldn't call this dust flap IP64. Certainly everywhere else it looks quite good, quite well sealed. I know USB Type-C chargers, which it's nice to see, are actually waterproof if done right. But yeah, I think that SD slot might kind of reduce that rating. But anyway, all run cams have this, and it was never really an issue. I've used them out in the rain plenty of times, so I'm not that worried about it. I just wouldn't be inclined to submerge this, even though that rating suggests that I could. as I mentioned, Type-C charging, it's really good to see Type-C charging, right? Modern day, that's the way everything should go. And RunCam have been doing that on their previous cameras also. Now, another good feature that I like that RunCam have brought back, which they didn't on their last camera, the RunCam Scopecam Plus, is these thumb tightening screws. So you don't need an Allen key to take them on and off. And that's really good, but they missed an absolutely massive thing here, a very big flaw. And that is, look how low down this mount is. Anyone that uses scopes know that your scope cannot sit directly on your on your gun like this. There is no way you can get your head down close enough to look through that. So unfortunately, and you'll without something like this riser, this Picatinny riser, it means your scope is going to be sitting far too low on your gun. You physically cannot get your head down. So I think it's considering this is a scope, I'm surprised they have not put in. Now, maybe it's because you can buy this camera as a scope on its own, like a Scopecam on its own feature, in which case you want it quite low. But I think if you're buying this option, they should be giving you something like a simple riser like this. Now, this took a few days to come. I had to order it on Amazon. But you'll see in my testing video later, I actually 3D printed my own mount to rise it up enough off the Airsoft gun so I could look through it. So, but anyway, yeah, that's a bit of a missed opportunity. I think even if they gave you a 3D printed version of this with the scope version, it'd be cheap and cheerful and it would get the job done. Bit annoying, yeah. So height-wise, it's too low because of that setup, okay? As I mentioned earlier, the eyepiece cover is removable, so that's nice. You've got a nice little front cover flap here, which can just be popped off. And actually outside this, there is a lens cover as well. Now this rubber piece can actually come off also. So it is quite adaptable. This is a lens protection cover. Again, kind of a missed opportunity, and I've been saying this to RunCam time and time again. All us Airsoft YouTubers that use scope cameras, we have what we call a sunshade. It comes out over this, right? And we've no lens on the front, because the lens on the front can give you sun glare and can actually make the footage not as good. So a sunshade, right? Even if they extended it out 2 centimeters over this and put this protective layer back inside that, right? Not at the front, that gives a much better, sharper picture. And I can actually demonstrate that with my other run cams. Let me just get them for you. So I have 2 other run cams here. This one was one of the older ones, and you can see here exactly what I'm saying. This is a sunshade that I actually took off another scope camera, and you can see where my lens is. It's way back in there, right? I have been saying this to RunCam the last few times, put a sunshade on it. And this was a scope, the perfect opportunity to make it longer. It would actually look really good. So I think that's a small bit of a missed opportunity. Now, just while we're here and I got the other cameras in front of me, this is quite interesting. You'll note the size, right? So this is a scope. So I'm happy with this being this big. It's kind of matches what you'd want to see. This is a camera on its own. This is the last one they did, and this is the one before it. Now, out of all of these cameras, the one I prefer the most is this one, the 4K Scopecam 2. Now, the Scopecam Plus is really nice. It's got digital zoom in and out, and it actually focuses as it zooms in and out. I can just show you that real quickly here. I can push this button in and out, and it'll zoom in and out. You'll see it. You'll see it zooming there. And the beauty about this is when it zooms in and out, it focuses automatically, which will get me on to my next point. So if I just power this off a second. This one is a scope, and like you'd expect, we can zoom this in and out up to 10 times zoom, and you can go digitally beyond that also, but you lose the resolution. To zoom this in and out, you have to zoom here. You're twisting this outer one. Now you'll see there's a very small grub screw on it. Now this grub screw means you can actually tighten it in that position and lock it so it won't get moved. But we also have 2 more adjustments here. So when you zoom this in and out, unlike this Scopecam Plus, it won't focus automatically. You then have to focus it, which I'll show you later in the video. you have to focus it manually to where you've it zoomed. Now this means in-game adjustments, unlike the older camera, are much slower. I would far prefer to see this digital zoom in and out feature on this camera. Now maybe it's a cost saving price because this, obviously there's a lot in this, it does night vision, but it's kind of annoying for me, and also means I can hit my focus and it'll be blurry. Now if it is blurry, you're going to notice it because you're using it as a scope. So but I think, I mean it also means that if you're not quite accurate with this adjustment, you might not be getting the absolute sharpest picture, unlike with this one, which kind of does it automatically for you. Now the old one, you had to kind of, it comes focused, but a lot of people would have twisted the lens to focus it manually themselves and then glue it in position and lock it off. But interesting, as I was mentioning earlier, look, this old one had the thumb tightening screw. The one after it didn't, and I've lost one of the screws, and now this one has it back again. So yeah, Runcam need to kind of retain what's good in the old cameras and keep it moving forward, right? I feel like sometimes they win and then they lose a little bit and win on some features, and then they win and then they lose on some features. They need to consistently improve all the features at the same time, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, let's get rid of these other cameras a sec and get back to this. So as I mentioned, it can do up to 10 times optical zoom and actually 8 times digital zoom, although that you have to focus it manually as you zoom in and out. Now this is an aperture one, which will basically close off. If you can see here, you might be able to see here, but when I actually move the aperture, what it does is it actually closes a lens in front of the, it actually closes off the lens. Now the reason for an aperture is it leaves in and out less or more light, okay? Now when you're going night vision mode, you're going to open this up to the last. You want as much light getting into the sensor as possible. So it's nice you can do that here. And also at different lighting situations, if it's very bright, you might want to close it off to darken it so you're not overexposed. It's nice, but in this camera, it kind of does that automatically for you. And even in this one, it does it digitally with a thing called metering. Because this has aperture that's manual, it doesn't have metering. And we'll get into that later when we talk about the app, but it's basically not a great thing. Now, like the last two cameras before, it has a very quick slide to power on and record feature, which is nice. It'll vibrate to let you know it's recording, and then you should get this little recording light which will come on. So at the moment we have no SD card, so it's a solid light, which is good. If that means there's an issue. If the SD card is in it, it would flash like the typical recording you'd see. There's other functions here which we'll show you later in the app, but basically if this slider's off, you can actually power on the camera by pressing and holding here and power it off. So you can still turn it on and off without this slider. Then you got feature mode buttons, which will go from standard to night vision and to 2 other modes, and then you've got up and down from menus. You can see here that we got microphones on a few locations, and yeah, so it's a pretty solid camera, really well built. I have no issues with that, and yeah, it's light considering it does what it does. One thing that's killing me is that the SD card slot will only accept 128 gig SD cards. Now this is a 4K camera, right? They really need to be getting onto like what the GoPros and DJIs and other cameras can do, which is 256 or even higher, up to 400 gigabyte SD cards. 128 isn't enough. It will record 4K for the 4 hours that the battery will last, but it would be nice to see more, because often if you're doing a milsim or something, you might want to put a bigger card in there so you don't have to be changing it from the first to second day. So as I showed you earlier, right, the viewfinder in here is digital. It's not like a real scope in that it's optical. You're not looking through a tube with optical lenses. And the problem that comes with that is that it's not a very high resolution scope, the one you're looking at here. What you're recording is high resolution, but what you're seeing through your viewfinder isn't. And that's not ideal, because it means seeing the BBs while you're shooting, which is an important thing when you're doing airsoft. Seeing where those BBs are flying is harder to do. Now, you can do it, And actually, especially at nighttime, it's very easy to see it because of just the way IR works. But during the day, given certain lighting scenarios, it can be very hard to see your BBs. And when it's slightly duskish, it can be quite hard. But we'll show you that a bit later anyway. Let's look at the features of the IR torch. Now, interesting enough, when you order this IR torch, it says on the website that it actually won't come with a battery. Now, mine did come with a battery, and I want to show you that battery, okay? This battery, as far as I can see, is not rechargeable, and it doesn't come with any way to charge it. It's not like some of the torches you see that might have a magnetic pad on it, and mine is actually now dead. So I've bought myself on Amazon a rechargeable version of this battery and a charger for the battery, which is kind of annoying. So that's something that you need to be aware of. If you buy this, apparently it says it won't come with the battery, so you'll need a source of battery for it if you can't buy it off RunCam, and you'll probably want to get yourself a rechargeable one or a charger. Now, I was able to pick up a rechargeable one and a charger for about €35, so just bear that in mind, okay? I have the mount on it here, which is made for mounting to the torch or to a Picatinny rail and the gun, and I have my pressure pad, which I think is perfect. You can cable tie this onto the side of your airsoft gun and you can press it. You can either click it and it will stay on, or click it and turn it off, or you can hold it on and off. So it does both functionalities. What I do like about this is one hell of a solid lens, right? One hell of a solid build quality. It seems to be IP64 rated, as you can see here. It's got very, very nice rubber O-rings on all the spots where water can get in. And one thing I like about this is it's actually quite powerful. So for nighttime, you can focus it way, way, way in. The focus actually goes nearly too far in. It nearly becomes like an absolute point to the fact you can see the LED, what the LED looks like on what it's pointing at. So I actually have mine like pretty much as wide as possible. And when you're looking through the scope camera at nighttime in that functionality, for airsoft ranges, it's perfect. You can obviously focus it more and more, so you can adjust it. So it's a good torch, but the issue is the battery and what it comes with. It's quite strong, as I said. Pressure pad is nice, albeit feels a little bit weird. There is no way to mount that to the gun, so I actually cable tied mine, or actually I duct taped it on. But one thing to note is that it's such a powerful torch that even when you've this turned on now, I can't show you today. Normally to the human eye, IR can't be seen, but this is so powerful that when you look at it to the human eye, you can actually see it, which is kind of crazy. So in a nighttime scenario, in theory, if you were using this and you turned it on, somebody would, with their bare naked eyes in the pitch dark, would possibly be able to pick up a slight red hue off it. Now, there is ways around that. You can do something like put baking paper over it, or put some kind of a mesh over it. The IR will still work really well through it, but it just means to the naked eye at nighttime, people are not likely to pick it up. What I could suggest is, if you're unhappy with that, you could buy a slightly less powerful IR torch that you won't see to the naked eye, and you should be fine then. Okay, so what we're going to do here today is, first of all, we're going to test out what this camera looks like from a picture perspective. So as you can see, I'm not currently focused, so I can focus the camera at any zoom. So right now I'm not zoomed in much, so I'm going to manually focus it, and as you can see, I can just hit the focus and I can get it. Now when I'm looking through the screen on this, it's not a very good screen, as I said, so knowing that I'm 100% focused is quite hard. So again, if I go to zoom it out further, you can see how that focus shifts. So if I go with no zoom, it looks like there's dirt on the lens there, which is interesting. When I then now have to focus this manually again, as you can see, and until I see a clear picture, and then I'm essentially focused. Now if I adjust
if I go and try and adjust the aperture, you'll see that I can darken the image almost actually to the point of it being really dark, or I can brighten it up like loads and loads. Now at night time you'd open the aperture up fully for night vision. It just will give you the best results. So there's three things I'm essentially adjusting here. So let's just see what the actual zoom is like. So I'm going to zoom it all the way in. You can see as I zoom it all the way in, now this is all optical zoom. It actually kind of find a spot where it'll focus again. So I got a bit of a focus on there. So you can see it's actually quite difficult to get a perfect focus. There we go. That's probably as close as I'll get. So I'm doing this all by eye. Now these scroll wheels are quite they are quite stiff, so that's good at least. But still quite difficult all the same to do that. So now if I take the zoom all the way back out again, I'm going to show you what it looks like to look through it with your eye. So what I can essentially see. I'm just going to bring this back up to focus. I'll zoom in a little bit. So I just want to get the zoom back to kind of a more normal state. Now I'm going to get my other camera and I'm going to actually record what it looks like to see through this camera, so you get an idea of what I'm seeing. So there you go. This is obviously with very little zoom, but you can see as I come into it there, it's a very fisheye looking lens. It's not a great lens. I have to push the camera quite far in against the rubber to get a nice picture. So you can see the image isn't bad, but it's not very sharp either. So it's just something to be noted. It doesn't look anywhere as good as looking through an optical scope. You know, this digital screen, as I said, digital screen in there isn't very high resolution. If it was a higher resolution, I think it'd be a lot better.
Okay, so now we're going to look at the camera features, which you can in the menu, and we're also going to look at the app. So when you link the scope camera and scope to the phone. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to show you this, and I can't show you through the eyepiece, but we need to turn on the Wi-Fi. So to do that, I'm going to take off the eyepiece so you can see this screen. I'm just going to basically press and hold this to power the camera up. So as you'll see here now, we're powering up. And we're into the menu, no SD card, 4K 30, battery, and no SD card in. So what I want to do is press and hold this button again, the center button, and then I can click to the Wi-Fi and turn it on. So now you'll see it's turning on the Wi-Fi, and the passcode is 12345678990. What I need to do then is I need to type in HITCAM into Google, and you can see here there's a HITCAM app to install in the Play Store. Now while that's installing in the background, you'll note that the old RunCam app won't work. So if I go in here, you won't see this camera in there. If I go into options, more cameras, you won't see it in here. As I said, RunCam are now going to HITCAM for their Airsoft scope cameras, so you won't see the old Airsoft scope cameras in there anymore. So let's just see how this download is doing. So it's downloaded, so hit open, okay? So you can see now I have the option to connect my camera. I've got my blue light on indicating that I've got Wi-Fi enabled, so I'll turn that on. Now I must turn my Wi-Fi on. When you're actually recording in gameplay, you won't want this on. It'll use up your Wi-Fi. So you only need to do this if you want to connect it to adjust some of the camera parameters. Now you can do quite a lot in the menu in this, which I'll show you later, but let's connect to the HITCAM here. It's probably going to ask me for my password for it, which the camera still has displayed on it. So let's just see. Always connect. I'm going to give it that option. So it actually didn't ask me for the passcode. Interesting. So let's go in, and it seems to be connected. So if I hit connect to my camera, oh, we've got something else. Oh, my mistake. This always happens. make sure you turn mobile data off, okay? It's weird, I don't know why, but this does seem to make a difference. There you go. Bingo. And you can see there as I point my camera around. So I'm just going to put that down. It's just saying I have no SD card detected. But you'll see here in real time that I can actually, if I focus, I can actually focus the zoom. I'm going to zoom it out. There's my notes for my review. But you can see here, that's the focus working. You can see it on screen. You'll see that that's zoom, I should say. You'll see it on screen. And you'll see that I can focus it. Look, blurry. And then this is what I was on about, manual focus. So look how sharp that gets. I can actually read what's on my screen. And then the aperture, you'll see the aperture working. So I'm in quite a dark room here. Look at that. I can brighten it way up. And I can actually go fully dark. So very interesting that it has all that features. Now let's have a look at the app itself now that we have that going. So you can see that when it's not zoomed in, you can actually see quite close. Look at that, like right there. The focus is quite good. But on this app, you got a number of different things. You can update your camera via firmware here. But you've also, first of all, this drop down. You notice I have customization 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is actually zeroing. Do I want to calibrate my scope to my shots? Now, I would personally do this with the function in the camera when I'm shooting. So I'm not going to do it here, but I can essentially align this crosshair, which I use to aim the scope with where my BBs are going. Other than that, we've actually got options to, this is actual digital zoom, which you'd never need to use this. Always use the optical zoom here, because digital zoom reduces your actual output or your resolution. You can manually go in and change things like your contrast, saturation, sharpness. Now I generally in my scope cameras leave all this alone. You can change your shutter speed, sensitivity, and there's metering mode. Now I'm really glad to see this because they did not have this recently. This is new, and this was going to be one of the negatives I put in my review. But generally speaking, what you want is to always set this to center metered. Did you see how my image just brightened up there? Let me go back. Look at it it's dark. When I set it to point or center, it basically, it brightens. What that means is where my crosshair is, when it's set to center metered, if I point it at something bright, it should underexpose it rather than like blasting it. So, and if I point at something dark, it'll brighten it up. So if it's too bright, it'll darken it down, and if it's too dark, it'll brighten it up. So, and I always want to do it where I'm aiming the camera, because the reason for that is if I was aiming in a dark window, to my eye, I'd probably be able to see the person in there, but usually cameras won't pick it up. If it's changed to center metered, it will try and darken up that bright room. So you're going to see that BB traveling into that room, hitting the person. So center weighted, I always change that. And white balance, I leave that alone generally. So yeah, generally I would get my exposure and I would turn this down a tiny bit to -3, just so it just underexposes stuff. You see here then I have the option to change resolutions. I've got 2K, 60, 30, 4K, 30 only. 1080 goes up to 90 FPS. So if you want super slow-mo. But generally, I like to go with somewhere like 2K 60. I think that's really good. So that's kind of the app. If there's updates for your camera, you'll see stuff in here, but you also have other options here to turn on and off things like, now as you can see here, this is where I can turn on and off flashback if I'm using that cable. Low battery vibration reminder, that's something I'm going to definitely turn on. Loop recording, no, this is not a dash cam. Auto shutdown, let's just see what this gives me. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, no, don't want that. I'm just going to turn that to off if I can. Can I set that to off? Yeah, it is set to off, okay. So lots of other stuff. You can change the name of your camera, the usual stuff, and what firmware update you're on. So that kind of concludes what you can do in the app, and I have my settings the way I want them. Now let's look at what we can do on the actual camera itself. Yeah. So what I'm going to do here now is I want to show you the menu. So it looks like you can play back your video too on the camera, but I'm going to go into menu, and this is where you get some of the same features that you have in the app, but you don't get to mess with stuff like what we saw there, the contrast, the centering, all that kind of stuff. So you can see I can go into resolution and I can make those other changes. So we had 4K 60 is what was selected. I can zero my reticle. So this is interesting. I have more than one profile. So maybe you want this set up for a rifle, an AEG, different guns don't shoot in exactly the same spot. You can do that. Now to do it, you just go into a profile, you click it, and it'll come up with start calibration. And you shoot a few shots and you move the green arrow to where your BBs are going, and then you click it, and that'll recalibrate and center your shots with your reticle. So when you're aiming your scope later, you can do that. So if I go back into menu, you also have the flashback option, so I can turn it on and off here if I want. I have image settings in here. I have quite a bit here. We have white balance, ISO, EV. Not bad. We actually have a lot more than I realized. So I can go in here to EV. I think I had that set to, yeah, it's still set to minus 0.3. So you can see that it actually has a lot more than you'd think. Each time when I want to go out, I have to press and hold the center button. Just say yes and save that the way it was. Now, we can actually, so if we go back into the menu, what else do we have? So as we go down here, we've got scenario mode. So I can actually change this by going left and right when I'm looking through the scope, but you can do it in here too. Loop recording, recording volume, high, medium, low, auto power off, vibration on, format my SD card if I've got old footage on and I want to delete it. Make sure it's off. You took it off first, but I can get rid of all that. So what I'm going to do here is I want to go out now and show you really quickly the modes, so left and right. So this is obviously daytime mode, regular mode. If I press over on this guy, you can see very clearly here we've got kind of a nighttime mode. If I go again, so let me just check that now. This is a crazy mode. I don't know what you call it or what it's used for, but it essentially picks up heat. It's not thermal imaging, but something that's cold is a different color and something that's warm is a different color. It's not the same as thermal imaging, don't get it confused. This is kind of a nighttime mode. This is your nighttime mode. So there's two nighttime modes that work with IR torch. This one, black and white, what you normally see. And there's this kind of iridescent mode, which makes things very Splinter Cell-like, but again, it's a nighttime mode. So 4 modes. So you've got standard night vision, kind of an iridescent night vision mode, a heat mode, which is crazy. It looks kind of cool though. And you've got your normal mode. So it's a nice camera. I do like it, and obviously press it and hold and go power off. Okay, so guys, I've obviously got my new Novice SSR 9 here, and I've got the lovely RunCam 4K, or sorry, HITCAM 4K, which is their new brand. And as you can see here, this is my 3D mount in action. Now, this is something that I think the gun should come with. If I dismounted to the rail down here and I was wearing Airsoft goggles, there's no way I'd be able to get in close enough to aim the scope. So as you can see, the way I have it now, it's much better. And I need to get my eye right into here to have a good visual. Otherwise, it's quite distorted on the sides. So having goggles on, obviously I can squish my face in here. It will work, but it's not ideal. So again, let's give it a go and see what it's like. It's low light, but it's not dark yet, so I'm not going to be using night vision until a little bit later, and I'll try that out then. But for right now, we're just going to fire a few shots in low light just to see how it actually looks, how the sensor picks up those BBs in flight. Just going to send a few shots out there. Try it down this way. Now a little bit later, we're going to try this out in night vision mode out here when it's absolutely pitch dark. and we're going to see how the scope picks up the BBs in night with the IR illuminator on and off, and with and without tracers. Just out for interest, we're going to be using the M Shooter tracer unit in here. Okay, so let's see what this shoots like. Fully dark. Now we're in nighttime mode here, and let's just see what it's like. Oh wow. Now see down into those trees there, quite dark. With the IR torch on, it comes alive. Now let's zoom in on that. And refocus the camera. Yeah, the night vision is very, very nice. Okay, so no suppressor on this. Let's see if we can see those BBs. So let me see. I can actually make them out with IR on. They actually look like tracers. So you'd actually be wasting your time shooting tracers at night with this, because one, they're going to give you away, and two, with the IR, they actually look like tracers anyway. Now we have other modes in this. So this mode here that I'm just have to click onto is even more interesting. You can see it here. It's very bright. It's kind of like, if I was to say, it's kind of like Splinter Cell. So without the IR, it's very, very green. I'm actually going to back this zoom out and just refocus it there for a second. Lovely. So sky appears very blue, or very green. Let's just go back to normal mode just to give you guys a flavour. This is white hot. This is not ideal for this time. So this is daytime mode. Just to give you a comparison. Daytime mode, nighttime kind of crazy version. Nighttime without IR and with IR. So you're going to need IR. So what do I like about this camera first? Okay, so I obviously like the fact it's 4K camera. It's a pity it doesn't shoot in 60 FPS. That would be the extra sauce on top. But it does do 4K 30. You can obviously go down to 2.7K, and you can go up to 60 FPS, which is nicer for the slow-mo shots. But as well as that, if you really want, you can do 1080 up to 90 FPS. So not bad options there, but it would be nice to finally see them bringing out 4K 60. I thought this camera would do it, unfortunately not. For a camera that actually does do night vision and it records in 4K, it's actually very low price. It really is. The next competitor up there, the ATN scopes, which are used for real steel, are double the money. Now with that said, they're better scopes overall, but the actual footage recording on this camera is better than those ATN scopes. So if you want very clear nighttime footage, it's actually quite good. The build quality of the scope is actually very good, and the IR torch as well. It's just a pity with the IR torch there's no way to charge it, but definitely the build quality is supreme. It is quite watertight, although I have my reservations about the little flap on the side, about that part being IP64. But yeah, the build quality is solid, and it's not too heavy. I like the fact that it's a 4-hour battery. I thought with this unit I might see a little increase in that, but 4 hours is really good. And obviously it has the fast charge functionality, which is super important, so that's really good. So, what do I actually dislike about this camera? So this is the bit that might surprise people. I think the dislikes slightly might outweigh the positives in some cases, but let me get into it and explain. Unlike the camera that came before, the Scopecam 2 Plus, when you zoom this manually, you have to then focus it. It'd be nice to see that automatic function that when you actually zoom, it focuses with it, like the last camera before it. Now obviously I think this was a cost saving measure, so okay, fair enough. But it is slightly annoying that anytime you zoom, you then have to focus. It's not that hard to do, but you might not always get the most sharp picture, especially in the heat of a game. You just need to get that thing zoomed in, and you might not have time to focus it right. So yeah, your footage mightn't come out the best. It's very annoying that this camera only handles 128 gigabyte SD cards. It's a 4K camera. They really need to be going up to 256. Hopefully a firmware update can fix this, but it's very frustrating. A 4K camera needs to be running bigger cards, even higher than 256 if at all possible. The scope's resolution as an optic, looking through it to see your targets, the resolution of the screen on the back is not quite up to scratch. It's not as good actually as a scope like an ATN scope. Because it's magnified as well by a lens which is not very good, it looks like you're looking through a fishbowl. It doesn't help things either. So I think that if that lens was improved, and the resolution of the screen at the back was improved, that would make a big difference. But look, it's their first attempt at doing this. It's not bad. It is usable. You can still track the BBs during the day, and you definitely can track them at night, which is decent because the IR really brightens up those BBs. But yeah, look, it's not the ideal solution, and having to get your eye so close to it is a little bit annoying. Now the other thing I didn't like is that the screen on that camera, you can't dim that screen that you're looking through. So at nighttime, if you're holding your gun down here, it's so bright that it's actually going to light you up like a torch. So being hidden at nighttime is not actually going to be that easy with that scope. The more expensive ones, like the ATN ones, you can actually dim that down, so it's not reflecting into your eye, or it's not reflecting over your whole body. I think that's something that a firmware update could probably fix, but we'll leave that one up to HITCAM and see if they can do that. But yeah, at nighttime you want to be invisible, right? That's the whole point of running night vision. With a really bright scope like that, if I was visibly walking around, you see the light on me, and especially when I bring it up close to my face. As well as it's so bright at nighttime that when I take it down, my nighttime my nighttime blindness is basically really bad. You know, it takes ages for your eyes to adjust again. So you want to be able to dim that scope at nighttime way down. That would be a brilliant feature if it got added. The scope mount is too low, so if you're buying the scope version, they should at least include like even a little 3D printed plastic riser for a Picatinny, because it's too low. When that scope is mounted on something like this, obviously you can see this is well risen up, this scope. It's actually down here. You can't get your eye down to that to look through it. You actually have to bring your eye down here. It's very awkward. So you want that scope to be up a little bit higher. So I think when you buy the scope version, you should be getting a little riser, something like this in the box. I think that ideally would be something that might be slightly overlooked, and it's annoying that you have to, in my case, 3D print one or wait a few weeks to get one online from Amazon. I got so impatient I just 3D printed mine, as you could see earlier in the shooting test. The crosshairs is a little bit fat, right? When you're looking through the more premium scopes of this kind that do recording like ATN, the crosshairs are much finer and you can actually change them. It'd be nice to have a few crosshair options. I don't like the small little T, and it's quite fat. It actually takes up a lot of picture. If that crosshair was almost twice as thin as what it currently is, it would be much cleaner, much finer, and it would look better. It would look more premium actually, in fact. So different reticle options would be something that maybe a firmware update could do as well, HITCAM. I hope you're listening. The one thing I mentioned earlier is a scope hood, right? I've mentioned this in previous RunCam review videos, and actually a lot of stuff I've mentioned before with RunCam, they've actually adopted over time into their cameras, but a scope hood is essentially the lens right at the end is no good. Light reflects off that and it actually reduces the sharpness on the image that you're getting. What all us YouTubers do is we actually put a lens hood out, we extend the hood out. You can keep that protective screen, but just back inside it. So even if they extended it out 2 or 3 centimeters, the scope would not only look a little bit cooler because it's a bit longer, but you're going to have a much sharper image. So it's a very simple thing that they could do. It doesn't really cost anything extra for manufacturing, but it'd be nice to see them get that right next time. The lens is back here and the scope comes out past it to stop the sun from hitting that lens. That's what you need for really crystal clear footage. So that concludes what I like and what I dislike. So would I recommend this and would I actually use it? So here's the thing. I would use this for nighttime games because it has very good resolution. The IR torch is very good. It's a bit annoying you can't charge that IR torch and it doesn't come with a rechargeable battery. But I would use it for nighttime. Would I use it for daytime? Probably not, because I have to get my eyes so close and it's just not the same as looking through an actual optic, right? Looking through a digital screen for tracking BBs, etc. It's just a little bit annoying. And the eye relief, the fact I have to get so close to it, kind of annoys me as well. I want a scope that I can sit back here about this far back from the actual lens and see through it clearly. Now with that said, I wouldn't use it during the day. I will be using this in night games. It's a very 50-50 one. I wouldn't use it for the daytime. I would use it for the nighttime because it's the cheapest option out there you can get for a night vision scope, and the actual recording quality is decent out of it. So yeah, that's where I'm at. It's kind of 50-50, but look, this is their first attempt at it. I'd be very interested to see what they bring out firmware update wise, and also I'd be very interested to see what the next version is going to be, maybe in a year or two, if they go that route again. But yeah, look, if you're interested in this, I'm not affiliated with HITCAM or RunCam in any way, but there's a link in my video description below. If you're interested, check it out. There's a few different versions you can get there, as I said, and yeah, give them a look and see what you guys think. I'm FoxGreen, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this, and don't forget, subscribe, hit that notifications button, and yeah, we'll be back with more Airsoft reviews very, very soon, and some gameplay. Lots of cool stuff coming. You're going to love it. See you guys.